Hey everyone, today I'm taking a look at Mykerinos, which is an older game that dates back to 2006, published by Astari Games and designed by Nicholas Ori. This one accommodates 2 to 4 players and takes around 45 minutes to play. So this is an area control and set collection style game that looks like this once it's on the table and set up. So you've got the main board here, which has this museum here, which is this circle symbol with all these different point systems in here. And this is important for end game scoring, which I'll touch on a little bit later. And these little symbols have been allocated randomly on these different spots to these different wings of the museum. And these all relate to these different patrons on the board here, which we'll be collecting for endgame scoring, but also to manipulate the board state and to give you powers as the game develops. And you've also got this set of tiles here, which you have these 8 tiles, at least for the first 3 rounds, and in the 4th round you've got, I believe it's 12 tiles. And the idea is that we're trying to control these tiles in order to collect what's on the reverse side of them, or again to invest in the museum. So as you can see here, the tiles are divided into sets of 2. And they kind of link to each other in terms of controlling them. And you've also got these pyramids on them, and you've got these symbols as well. And sometimes you have victory points. And as you can see, the symbols all correlate to a different patron. So you've got this cross one here, which relates to this tile. So on the reverse side of these tiles, we've got that particular patron, which I'll explain the significance of that a little bit later. So let's talk about how this game actually plays out and what you actually do in order to obtain victory points. So first off, the first phase, you are going to be taking a number of cubes depending on the player count. So in a 3-player game here, you're going to take in a supply of 11 cubes, and that's going to be your personal supply. But you've also got the general supply, which can be important in terms of having a flow of resources. So yeah, the first thing you're going to do, the first player is going to take a cube, and they are going to allocate it somewhere on the board here with the purpose of trying to control a particular region. So let's just say this player goes here, and maybe the blue player will go here, and the red player will go here, without any thought going behind my decisions. And then from then on, you can either choose to do the same thing again and go somewhere else, like I could go over there, for example, or I can choose to place 2 cubes when I expand out from an existing cube. So if you stay within your kind of remit and stay connected to your other pieces, then you can actually spread across the board a lot faster than you normally could if you just teleport somewhere. And the pyramids are blockers, so you can't actually go through them, and also you cannot share spaces with anybody else. So blocking is quite a significant factor in this game in terms of trying to control these regions. So let's just develop the board here a bit and show you the significance of trying to control these tiles. So I've advanced the game here. Once all players have placed the cubes they want to, you're going to keep placing until you either run out or until a player passes, or until all players pass. Which means you'll put your token on the player order track here, which is going to be important for breaking ties. So the earlier you pass, you're going to break ties in terms of area majority, and it'll also affect the first player next turn, because so whoever plays who passes last will be the first player in the next turn. And then we're going to evaluate all these different areas. So let's start with the top left-hand corner here. So as you can see, the white player has 4 cubes in this area, or set of 2, and the red player also has 4 cubes. Because it's a tie, we'll refer to the track here. So the white player passed first, therefore he'll win the tie and get first choice on picking the tiles he wants. So first off, you're going to clear all the cubes off, like so. And then the white player is going to choose which one he wants here. So let's just say he takes this one here, like this. He'll flip it over and put it in front of them for future turns, because these cards, these tiles, not only are important for scoring points, but also for the powers that they can use. And let's say the red player, who was in second place, rather than choosing this tile, they can choose to put one of their tokens from the supply, the general stock that is, onto the museum board. And this is important because, again, it's going to really affect the way you score points at the end of the game. So the initial cube you put down has to go in an area with a 2 or a 3 in it. So let's just say I put one here just for example's sake. And what this means now is that all my cards that I collect, so again these tiles with these symbols on, are going to be worth 2 points each if they're a triangle or a heart. If I went to this particular spot here, that means that all my triangles are going to be worth 3 points. So you've got that option of whether you want to go for a more kind of flexible strategy and get 2 points for either one, or maybe go more pinpoint focus and go for more points on a particular symbol. And from then on, in a future turn, if I wanted to invest in the museum again, I can actually choose to invest in the 5-point region, which will of course give me a lot of points depending on those symbols. And then if there was a third player in play on that set of tiles, then they'll have the choice of taking any tile that wasn't collected in the previous round. So let's just say, for example, there was a blue tile or blue token on that set of tiles, then he'll actually have the choice to take this tile here and again put it in front of them for not only the powers but for end game scoring as well. And that's going to play out for all of these areas here, and of course getting victory points if they do have victory points on them. And then in the following round, you're going to set up a new bunch of tiles and you're going to take another amount of cubes in, depending on the player count, and add them to your existing tokens that you haven't spent in the previous round. So again, you can carry cubes over from round to round. And then in the next round, you can do the normal things, whereas you can put a cube on the board, you can extend from that cube like so by placing 2 cubes, or now you can actually choose to use the powers of these patrons. So let's talk about what these patrons can actually do and help you in your turn. So first off, let's take a look at this rather miserable lady here, Mrs. Blackmore. She will actually let you put 2 cubes on as an initial move. So you can actually go straight on the board and pop the 2 cubes down rather than just the 1. So again, you can spread yourself a lot quicker and jump into those prime positions without having to worry about only putting this single cube down. You've got Mr. Brown here, or Sir Brown. He'll let you put a cube from your immediate supply, from your personal supply, straight onto the museum, so you don't have to wait until the next turn to do that, to claim one of these spots. So again, if I wanted to go there, I could do that, or maybe jump straight into the 5-pointer here, just because getting to this spot is quite tough. So this is a very good one, particularly in the earlier stages of the game. You've got Colonel Tangerine here. Colonel Tangerine lets you spread 3 cubes from where you've got an existing spot. So again, if you have somewhere on the board, you go 1, 2, 3 rather than the actual 2. So again, you can spread and control things a lot faster than you normally would be able to. You've got this lady here, so Lady Violet. She lets you take one from your general pool and add it to your personal supply, and then basically take a normal turn. So she's really good for kind of keeping your supply flowing and having things to spend. And you've got this chap here, so Lord Lemon. He actually lets you build on top of pyramids. So these are great because if you have a particular blocking space, you can build straight on top of it, like so, and not have to worry about that restriction. And as you use these patrons as the game goes on, you're going to show they're exhausted by tapping them, because you can only use them once per round. And then in the following round, you can unexhaust them all to show that they're all be able to use again. So they're very useful tools to have, not only for the powers, but of course for the scoring, because again, at the end of the game, every token you have is going to be calculated on what they're worth. So again, at the moment, the white players, Lord Lemon, which is the triangle, are going to be worth 2 points, because again, I got that 2-point marker connecting to that symbol there, whereas the red players, their Lord Lemons, are going to be worth a massive 5 points. And that's going to be how the game's going to play out. You're going to play it 4 times, and in the 4th round, there's actually going to be 12 tiles available for capture. So let's talk about how I feel about Mykerinos. So first off, the first part of the game here, where you're controlling these tiles, is, as you can probably tell, very abstract in its approach. There is really nothing here to be hidden. It's very transparent in what people can do, but I do like the way it works despite its simplicity, because you can really block people off to your advantage and stop people getting in on the tiles that you want to control, or at least make them spend more actions in terms of just teleporting in there in the first place, rather than spreading from where they already are, because it really is a quick land grab in wanting to control these, and they're pretty tight in what you can do. And I like the fact that as you acquire more and more of these characters, you can really mitigate your control of these, and it really can play the game, because sometimes you can actually start using these pyramids to your advantage by stopping people jumping into your regions, but then all of a sudden you can get the power to let you build on pyramids, which completely changes the game. But it all goes hand in hand, and the way it comes together and just naturally develops is really smooth and very strong. So I do like that tension of what you're going to do optimally and how you're going to kind of capitalize on the current board state. So in terms of being like a simple abstract area control game, it just works wonderfully well well, and anybody can understand what happens. I suppose my favourite thing about the game here is the way the scoring works. So not only in the way you acquire the tiles in the first place by, are you going to take the tile for the power and the symbol, or are you going to try and grab one of these very lucrative museum spots, because these get gobbled up extremely fast, and you want to get in those higher spots, because if you have a big multiplier in terms of maybe collecting loads of heart symbols and then you get in this 5 area, then that is a lot of points at the end of the game to be had. So I do like the way that works. And I should say, only your highest point value scores. So if I had the 3 and the 5 here, only the 5 will score. But that can be a huge, huge difference maker. So yeah, I like that scarcity, and I like the fact you have to almost, are you going to play it a bit safe and give yourself the option of scoring 2 points for each of these symbols, or are you going to really focus on getting that particular symbol and double up on what you're going to go for? And it all goes well. And that sacrifice of am I going to give up one of these really amazing tiles because having those powers available to you is so strong in order to claim a museum spot? And more often than not, you'll probably find that you are willing to do that, despite the other option being very inciting. And I also like the fact that you have to weigh up, even getting third place. If somebody is going to claim a spot in the museum, then another tile is going to go to the third player. And it all matters, and it all's going to affect the scoring at the end of the game. So I like the way that every decision here is quite pivotal, and it can be the difference between winning and losing. If I'm talking about the balance of Mykerinos, I would say that everything here is open. You can see what people are capable of, and there's going to be nothing here that's going to catch you off guard. So I think, 9.5 times out of 10, the best player of this game is going to win the game, and because everything you do has an impact on going forward. Even passing, and are you going to be the first to pass and break those ties? But bearing in mind that in the future round, in the next round, you're going to go last if you pass first, which can be important because you might not be able to claim the spot that you want and get the tiles that you want before other people go and start invading it. So the time investment of Mykerinos is spot on, to be honest. There's only 4 rounds, and the rounds do go by very quickly. I mean, the game does say 30 to 60 minutes. I would say you can get a 3-player game of this done once everybody knows the game in about half an hour. So, it's certainly one of those games that falls in that under an hour bracket very comfortably. And for all the depth to the simplicity and the time ratio is spot on for me. There's not many games of this ilk, really, of this style that you can play that quickly. And so I think that's quite a nice niche for this game. It's nice and fast, very simple to explain, but still has a lot of crunchy decisions behind it. So I think the time investment and the general uptime is spot on, because, even players' turns, there might be a tiny bit of analysing the board state, but generally just popping a cube down and going on to the next player. So it's very quick, and you're not going to be bogged down waiting for other people to mull over their turns. Replayability is maybe one of the weakest areas here, because game from game you are pretty much getting the same experience. Of course, the tile layout is going to be different from time to time, and the powers available to you is going to change depending on what you're invested in, and of course the order in which these museum spots get snapped up. But more often than not, you're going to feel like you're playing a game of Mykerinos when you do play Mykerinos, and it doesn't feel like you're having a vastly different experience from time after time. But it is a game of reacting to the board state, so no massive issue, but it's not got a tremendous amount of variability or modularity. Aesthetically, this game is going to be polarizing. It's certainly bland to look at least from an objective point of view. Games don't really get away with looking like this nowadays. This is only from 2006, but you can just see the way that the board game industry has changed in terms of production. Certainly something like this wouldn't hit the shelves nowadays and wouldn't kind of get past being published, really. But I actually think that kind of works in advantage to this game, because it doesn't do anything it doesn't need to do. It's got nothing superfluous here. All your markers are just cubes rather than some big silly plastic miniature for the sake of it. Maybe the artwork could be vamped up a little bit. It's all quite dry and dusty looking, but I think I've said before, personal taste, I don't mind that. I think it's got a certain nostalgic factor to it. But I've got no real issue with the production. I think it's nice that it fits in a relatively small box, and it's not going to take up a hell of a lot of space, which is great, because a lot of games now just go big and dominating and make massive productions just for the sake of it to capture the eye. But I suppose that's, again, it's a sign of the times where there's so many more board games coming out now that they need to go that extra step to catch the consumer's attention. The Setup and teardown time is lightning quick, really. You just got a bunch of cubes, set up some tiles, and you're pretty much good to go. So once you get this to the table, setting it up and packing it away is only going to take a couple of minutes. The sense of progression in the game is actually pretty good. Because of, the scarcity of the museum, you want to get in there quickly. And that ramps up in tension. If you've got a bunch of tiles and all the spots are getting gobbled up and you've not even got anything in there yet, then your tiles are only going to be worth 1 point, which is not good, depending on or considering the investment you've made on collecting those tiles. So it does have a good forward momentum there, and also the way that you are acquiring more and more player powers, meaning that you have these powers to use more as the game goes on. And if you have a whole army of these, then you've got quite a lot of good power in order to influence the board state. But that, of course, applies to all the other players as well. And I also like the flow of managing your resource cubes, particularly because any cubes you didn't use in the former rounds, you do keep available to you in the future rounds, which I think is a big bonus in the game. And I think it does actually make the game better than if that rule wasn't in it. And the scalability is pretty good, to be honest. I would always play this at 3 or 4 players. There is a 2-player variant where you use a blocker piece or a neutral piece in order to affect the board state and block your opponent, etc. I wouldn't really consider playing that one. As with most area control games, you want to be playing this at that 3 or 4 player count. But at that 3 or 4 player count, it's perfectly fine either way, and it's going to be even kind of really tense in terms of collecting the museum spots at that 4 player count, because at a 3 player count, it's tough as it is, but in a 4 player count, by God, it's going to be a struggle. So overall, I'm trying to clarify my thoughts on Mykerinos. I would say I was very pleasantly surprised by this one. Reading the rules, I was thinking, okay, this is, again, borderline abstract. It's very clear on what people can do at any time. And usually games like that for me fall a bit flat and don't have that extra spark that I like. But when I started to realise the importance of every decision you do here, I started to really kind of sink my teeth into it and start to get quite a lot of satisfaction out of claiming these tiles. And I really love the scoring system in this one. It's actually fantastic. This actual this museum system is great. Again, how are you going to invest? Are you going to try to keep your options open, or are you going to tunnel vision yourself? And those micro decisions are going to massively affect the outcome of the game. I love the way these powers work. They're all worth having, and they all have their own little strengths here, and none of them are really kind of worse than the others. And even if the powers aren't great, you still want to be collecting those tiles because you may have invested in that spot on the museum board. The actual area control itself is dirt simple as it gets, but it is important, and that kind of, you want to be hasty in terms of jumping into the spots to block people off, and knowing when to prioritise and when people are going to likely start coming into your regions, or I know they're not your regions, but start encroaching on the areas you want to control, and knowing when to just tactically put that marker down to stop them from creeping in, meaning they have to teleport in and not be as efficient. So all this is great with the resource management as well, is top notch. Yeah, production isn't going to be for everybody, but I do like the way it looks. I think it's got a real throwback feel to it, which I personally enjoy, and I think this one holds up extremely well, considering how old it is, and and how many of these area control games are out there now. So I actually would recommend this game if you can get your hands on a copy for an affordable price. Give it a go, because it certainly has some kind of timeless appeal to it, and it does hold up very well, and I feel it's going to hold up well for some time to come. So that's my thoughts on Mykerinos. Give it a try if you like your dry, dusty area control games. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you found it useful or at least somewhat entertaining, then please hit like and consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Additionally, if you wish to support the show, because I am a one-man operation and I don't get any support from publishers, then please consider backing it on Patreon at patreon.com/chairman of the board, where you can back for as little as £2 per month. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.